wonderful time to be alive.
The Chernobyl power plant is exploding.
Ah, yeah.
And it's spreading nuclear radiation to Russia and Europe.
Oh, terrible time to be alive.
Welcome to Pripyat, a city in Ukraine with a population of 14,000 people, and home to the Chernobyl power plant. Today, people are minding their own business and having a good time. Now, if you were a citizen of Pripyat, this is what might be passing through your mind right now.
I sure hope that the Chernobyl reactor doesn't explode on us, eh?
Yeah, that would never happen.
But that is exactly what happened. On April 25th, 1986, the fourth generator of the power plant exploded. This was because of human error, because before the disaster took place, workers were performing an experiment involving the turbines and coolant pumps. To do so, they had to lower the reactor to 25% of its capacity. However, there was a problem, and for an unknown reason, the power instead plummeted to 1%. Workers tried to increase the power back to 25%.
The reactor is losing power. Increase the power. Increasing power.
But this caused a massive energy surge and caused the reactor's emergency abort system to fail. The energy surge started to overheat the reactor, and eventually the hot uranium fuel and cooler water caused a steam explosion.
The reactor is overheating. Radiation is spilling out.
The first explosion led to other explosions when substance A met substance B and formed a reaction. None of them were good. Workers fled for their lives, and one who had been caught in the explosion was left for dead. The explosions also caused radioactive dust to be spread around the area, and it's estimated that the radioactive exposure killed 50 people over time. People had no idea that they were being exposed to radiation, and kids still went to school, adults still went to work, and nobody was ever warned about the danger. Radioactive dust spread all the way from Russia to Sweden, and most of Europe was able to feel the effects of the disaster. And while Ukraine was hit the worst, obviously, other countries such as Norway, Germany, and Russia were still hit hard. Firefighters spent 10 days trying to put out the fire with the assistance of helicopters, but once again, they had no idea what kind of danger they were in regarding the radiation. Once they did find out, it had been days if not weeks after they had stopped the fire and were being treated in several different hospitals.
Your clothes are covered in nuclear radiation.
The hospitals the firemen were treated at are still some of the most radioactive places on Earth to date. Now that all sounded bad, but it could have been way worse, and here's why. With the reactor overheating, it was causing the uranium fuel to start corroding the floor, and it was heading straight towards a tank of water that acted as a coolant. The tank was full of 5 million gallons of water. If the uranium made contact with the tank, it would have caused a steam explosion so large it would have had the force of 3 to 5 megatons, which would have destroyed the 3 other reactors and made most of Europe uninhabitable. Since there is no way of stopping the radioactive metal, the water would have to be drained. This, however, was a definite suicide mission due to the large amounts of radiation and the fact that the basement, which was where the valves were located, was flooded waist high in water. This is where the trio, sometimes dubbed the Suicide Squad, comes in. A group of 3 men knew what would happen if the water wasn't drained, so they set off into the basement to drain the water. In short, it went something like this.
Comrade, we need to drain the water from the basement. Okay, then let's go.
And while it's a bit more complicated due to the complex pipe structure and low levels of light, they managed to drain the water from under the reactor and save almost all of Europe. Somehow, none of the men suffered from ARS, and while one of them died of an unrelated heart attack, the rest lived a happy life. So what about restoring Chernobyl? What would happen if we did? Is it even worth it? For the most part, Chernobyl is uninhabitable, give or take a few areas outside of the exclusion zone. As it is right now, Chernobyl will be uninhabitable for over 20,000 years, and even if humans tried to restore the area like they are in Fukushima, it would be dangerous and difficult. For instance, you would be unable to eat inside the hot zone of Chernobyl without this happening.
Time to restore Chernobyl. Oh, I'm dead! Obliette! I died.
And if you don't have protective gear, this could happen.
Time to restore Chernobyl. Oh, I have a nuclear radiation. Oh, I'm dead. Obliette.
Another problem is when Chernobyl was first evacuated, animals from nearby forests started to move into the city.
Hello, Venom. Hello, animal.
Hello, fellow animal.
This place is empty.
Yeah, that's inhabited.
And if we did manage to restore Chernobyl, this would happen.
We restored Chernobyl.
What about them?
Forget about them.
To put it short, this is a simple food web of Chernobyl before the disaster. Simple, right? Here's a food web of Chernobyl after the disaster. So in short, if humans were to restore Chernobyl, they would be uprooting an entire ecosystem. The looming question now is, how could this have been prevented? Could it have? How can you prepare? Preventing a nuclear disaster in modern day is simple and difficult for all the good reasons. For simplicity's sake, if you live close to a power plant or work in a power plant, have Geiger counters and radiation badges handy. Geiger counters are used to detect the amount of radioactive energy coming from an object, and work by having a tube filled with gas inside the counter. That gas becomes conducted to electricity when impacted by a high energy particle. Radiation badges work in a similar way, but they use a series of filters to tell which type of radiation is being spread. However, the complicated part is, well, most modern plants have upgraded their security systems to the point of near perfection, and we haven't had a nuclear disaster in over 8 years. Still, it never hurts to be safe. And on that note, always have an escape route in case of an emergency. In the case of the Chernobyl disaster, the most popular area close to the plant is Kiev, the capital of Ukraine. The safest bet if you are an unsuspecting citizen of Kiev who knew he needed to get away from Chernobyl and also somehow knew that the winds would be blowing the radioactive dust north, you would want to head to the city called Odessa, as shown on the map. From there, you can flee to other countries lower south, such as Moldova, Romania, or Bulgaria. As well as having an escape route, you'll probably want to have a kit full of supplies. For a disaster like this, you'll need to plan to be away from home for years, if not the rest of your life. So here's what you might need.
We should have food.
We need fresh water.
We need a tent for shelter.
Great, now you can be fully prepared for a nuclear disaster.
Now I'll be safe.
Thank you for watching this presentation of the Chernobyl nuclear disaster. Now enjoy the bloopers.
1, go.
What am I supposed to say?
2, 1, go.
Comrade,